Welcome to August 7th, Foxborough Board of Selectmen meeting. I'll go through the agenda briefly. At 7 o'clock, as we always do, we'll have citizens' input. At 7:05, we'll have a chairman's update. At 7:10, we have a discussion. We have a guest coming in to discuss the tobacco program funded by the Bureau of Substance Abuse, Miss Edge. At 7:20, it's a continued public hearing for the request for the transfer of the liquor license on a business known as Christina's. At 7:45, Kevin Pecos, the town manager, is going to discuss a little bit about the fine that was levied against National Grid, followed by a discussion by the board and the town manager on the goals and objectives for fiscal year 13. We're going to discuss a gift acceptance policy for the town at 8:45. And at 8:50, we're going to wrap it up with a discussion on the newly formed committee between the craft organization and the town. So on that note, I'm going to ask Joe Garrity, who's here today, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Over here, Joe.
This way, Joe.
Joe, sorry.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Joe.
Kevin?
Oh,
Is it on?
Yeah, just push that up.
Thanks. If you'd give me a minute, Mr. Chairman, I want to be sure I know how to turn this off.
So Pauline, our secretary, who's
Just push
usually
it up.
here, is
Yep.
not, so we may ask you to stop while we change the tapes.
Is it going?
And if there's guests that haven't been here before, we are being recorded, video and on microphone for, thank you, for Foxborough Cable Access. So if you could just speak into the microphone. So anyone here for citizens' input? And we just ask if you could introduce yourself for the record and the people at home.
Hi, how you doing? AJ Dooley, 75 Ridge Road, and also the owner of Dooley Disposal Services. First off, I want to start off by thanking the Board of Selectmen and all of the residents in town for overwhelming support in the first 4 weeks of my attempt to start a household trash service in town. I'm here also to say that things are going great. We have 2 brand new trucks on the road every single day servicing the town and the residents, and up to this point we have had not one single complaint, and things have been great. But unfortunately, that is not the reason why I'm here tonight. 2 weeks ago, I stood before you, and when I left here, I was put under the assumption that some negative, slanderous remarks that had been coming from town employees was going to be...
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. With all due respect, if anyone wants to make a complaint against a town employees have rights under both the bylaw as well as collective bargaining contracts. I don't know what employees are being complained against, but if this board allows its forum to transgress the rights of the employees by having their names mentioned or have allegations made publicly, then we are creating liability for the town because those employees have rights. Now, if there is an allegation, Mr. Dooley has already met with me. He's already made it. I've already addressed one allegation. If he has another, then the appropriate way to do it is not in a public board meeting and certainly not to this board. It is to me, the town manager, who is the personnel director under the charter, and I will most assuredly take the appropriate action. But if we allow this to progress, I'm afraid that we will cross some very, very significant legal boundaries, and I want the board to be aware of that.
All right, thank you.
With that being said, not one person's name will be mentioned. It is not about that. I am about just trying to make sure that I am treated with the respect that I truly believe that I deserve.
Okay,
And no one's name is
understanding there may be a legal issue. If you could not name names, not
I
name
will
departments,
absolutely not
keep it
name any names.
in general terms.
Absolutely.
And
And
then
this
we
will
can
be as
address it.
short and as brief. I've knocked my 6-page essay down to a brief 3 to 4 minutes, if you let me go. Okay, so with that, basically when I came in here 2 weeks ago, I was told that this situation was going to be addressed. Yesterday, it was brought to my attention by a citizen in town that 3 slanderous remarks had been presented to her, and that she had no problem, or that this person had no problem going on the record stating that this was done. So, with that being said, the first one was, Dooley Disposal does not recycle. That is a false statement. I am willing to provide the town with my recycled weight slips and add them to the current provided weight slips to help increase the overall tonnage for the town. At a prior meeting, it was stated that Foxborough is the number 2 in the state of the Massachusetts in recycling. My personal goal is to get us to be number 1. Number 2, quote, Dooley will not be able to service its customers. Another false statement. We have the equipment, the manpower, and the office staff to serve every customer to the highest standards. We have received 0 complaints so far. 3, quote, Dooley will increase their prices next year. Yet another false statement. I will state right now that I will not raise my prices for the next 3 years. I will not raise my prices. The town's prices in the contract will go up over the next 3 years. And you have me on record saying that. I take a lot of pride in what I do. And I think that there have been some people that have been very, very professional about this. And there are some people that have been extremely unprofessional about this. And all I am asking is that justice take order here and not let this continue to happen, because it's not fair to me, it's not fair to my family, and it's not fair to the employees who work for me. And that is all I am here to say. I do not want to spend my time coming up here every single Tuesday and doing this. And anybody who thinks that I do, I'm sorry, you're wrong. I am a very, very busy person, and this is the last thing that I want to be doing. So hopefully, the right actions will be taken to fix this problem. And that is all I am here to say. And if anybody wants to personally call me and ask me, where these statements are coming from and all that, I am unable to do it right now and say who and what, but I am more than happy to do it privately with anybody who wants to call me. And I thank you all very much for my time, and hopefully you guys will take care of the situation, because from what I have heard, I am not the only person that this has happened to, and hopefully it's an end. Put it to an end. And I feel that the people in front of me are the only people that can make that happen.
Can you meet with Kevin if this is something that happened? Can you meet with him and explain?
We already did yesterday.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I took care of the problem, and
I was guaranteed.
frankly, I'm surprised that AJ is here, because I took care of the problem, and we spoke by phone after I took that action with those employees, and assured him that I had taken care of it, and asked him that if there was any repetition after I spoke to the employees, to please call me. I gave him my home phone, my personal cell phone, and of course town phone, and asked him to call me personally if there was any repetition of the problem. And I'm hoping, based on the actions that I took, that there won't be.
So when I did state that there has been absolute professionalism, that is, I was talking about Kevin, and I'm sorry for naming a name, but he has been 100% professional about this.
It's okay to say nice things. That's okay.
Not really.
No, I'm not going to say too many, so let's not get crazy.
That's true.
But now that, and honestly, I got a little bit off track, and this is the bottom line. And the reason why I am here, because we did have a very good conversation yesterday, but unfortunately I am here because there are a lot of town residents that were led in a direction to believe these things, and they may have not gone with me because of the slander. So, with that being said, and I'm glad that you spoke and got me back on track, I also would like a written public statement in the town of Foxborough's reporter, as soon as possible, apologizing to me for any misleading or untrue slanderous statements. And I also want an explanation of what is going to be done to prevent this from happening going forward. And, Kevin guaranteed me yesterday that this would not happen again. So, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but when you guarantee me that it won't happen again, without saying it absolutely happened, you are saying it won't happen again. So, could you please grant me that apology letter?
We're getting a little bit.
I want to run it a little bit. This is
What I do, so that I think the board understands, is I never, because of the fiduciary oath that I take to the town, is I never admit publicly if the board does something wrong. I simply don't admit that.
Okay.
And that is a fiduciary responsibility that I'm required to fulfill and the board members are required to fulfill. What we do, and what I will say, is what I told you yesterday, that Mr. Dooley, I'll help you out here a lot, I hope. Mr. Dooley actually showed me his recycling receipts from Miller Recycling, I think it is.
Correct.
And I actually saw them. And then in point of fact, I observed those. With respect to the other comments that were made, I can neither verify nor deny that they were made because, number one, they weren't made to me. The party that you're somebody relayed some information to you, that same person related to me, but I was not there. It's hearsay from someone else. I did approach the employees that were involved. I asked them. They indicated that they had said certain things, and I admonished them not to do it again. My guarantee is not that they won't do it again, because I can't control people.
Correct. You can't police them.
My guarantee is that if any employee does that again, disparages you in any way, or any other businessman in town, that I will take the appropriate disciplinary action if it continues. And I'm not expecting that it will.
Well, thank you very much, and hopefully this will be the last time that you guys have to see me up here speaking. Have a good night.
Thanks, AJ.
Thank you.
Anyone else from citizens input? Going to give just a couple quick updates on a few topics. We meet every other week. At the next meeting that we have in 2 weeks, we're hoping to have the fire chief back here with some of the town staff to finalize the overtime analysis that we started a few months ago. And then hopefully that kicks into the police fire time analysis, which we haven't started, but it was falling behind the fire department overtime analysis. The parking bylaw, at the last town meeting, the town passed a bylaw regarding parking on non-business properties. Although it was primarily focused around North Street and those neighborhoods, it affected the whole town. I was hoping to have that resolved. When I say resolved, it was a committee that was formed. They had several meetings to determine some type of an enforcement policy with the police chief and the building inspector. That didn't happen for tonight's agenda for two reasons. One reason is the Attorney General hasn't finalized their review and approval of the bylaw. They've come back with a few comments in draft form, and I think it will fly, but the wording's tweaked a little bit. And the second reason is the committee who was asked to come to the meetings and participate submitted a letter with some suggestions, and I don't think it's been fully vetted through the police chief and the building inspector. So bear with us a little bit. I know we have a pregame on Thursday night, but hopefully we'll have this all resolved for the next meeting. At 7:10, we are on just about schedule. Is Miss Edge here, Marilyn Edge? Welcome if you want to come up here. And if you could just introduce yourself for the public, both of you.
My name is Marilyn Edge, and I am the director of a 13-town collaborative state-funded program that includes Foxborough. Pauline is who I work with through the Board of Health, and she came because she has some very nice things to say about me, so I'm going to let her do that while I'm handing out my business cards.
And I'll be brief. I just want to let you know that Marilyn has been an unpaid agent with the Board of Health for the past year now. She has brought awareness of many different tobacco products and drug-related products to the forefront of my board. She has done many awareness presentations for our community. For instance, on June 26th, Marilyn and Tim O'Leary did a tobacco awareness program for all of our tobacco permitted holders, the retailers. This presentation brought attention to all of the new and dangerous types of products that retailers are now being asked to sell. Marilyn can talk further on that. Marilyn has also done presentations for our network service provider meetings, our SAFE meetings she's been involved with, and also with the school system. She's done several presentations. Marilyn keeps the board aware and has her finger on the pulse with a lot of the new, innovative, and sometimes dangerous products that are on the market today. We, the Board of the Health, thank her for all her hard work and dedication in working with the Tobacco Coalition in regard to the safety for our residents of our town.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I read that earlier. I was very impressed by that. As Pauline said, I am an unpaid agent of your Board of Health. I am an unpaid agent of all of the Boards of Health listed on that business card that I just handed out to you. It's a state-run program for tobacco control, and it's paid for by Department of Public Health under the Bureau of Substance Abuse. So I work full-time, and I have, which by no means 9 to 5, and I have a part-time inspector that works with me as well. What the tobacco program entails is that I go into every tobacco permitted establishment, and I make sure that they're in compliance with all of the local city and town regulations, state law, FDA, Attorney General, all of those things. I make sure they have the appropriate signage, and if they don't have it, I provide it to them free of charge. I work with them on product placement because tobacco products have to be placed in a certain area, so they're not accessible to self-service displays. No tobacco on the counter. Customers have to ask for their tobacco products. I also am the person who does the compliance checks, where I take 16 and 17-year-olds to the stores where they go in with money I give them, and they make attempts to purchase tobacco products. If they are successful in purchasing a product without an ID, then I work with the Boards of Health and the Police Department on either issuing tickets or having them brought before the board for a hearing. So we've been pretty fortunate. We had 2. Did we have 2? We had 2 the last time around. So that was pretty good, I thought, considering there hasn't been any tobacco control in Foxborough in a long time. This fiscal year, because our money comes from the Bureau of Substance Abuse, they've added to many of the Board of Health programs an alcohol component, and that's why I'm here today. It's an alcohol education piece. I have no enforcement power at all on alcohol, but there are 3 components to this year's my work plan, and one of them is that I meet with all of the licensing board entities, liquor licensing entities in all of the 13 communities, and introduce myself and tell them what the tobacco program is about. One of the other components is that any time now that I have a sale of tobacco to a minor in an establishment that has any type of liquor, whether it's on or off premise, beer or wine, I have to notify the liquor licensing entity, which is you. And then I'm working with all of the police departments to do at least one alcohol compliance check right along with the police departments. And I work very closely with all of the chiefs and the police departments on a lot of different programs, not just tobacco. Because I'm in the stores and my inspector is in the stores more than the police or the Board of Health. I notify when I find items that I know are against the law by Mass General Law 94C, which is the drug paraphernalia law. I notify the police departments. And because it's a police department issue, they take care of the enforcement, whether they confiscate or not. That's up to the different, each police department does something different. So, and as Pauline said, I do a lot of presentations, and I've done a lot of them in Foxborough on alternative tobacco products and how the tobacco companies are marketing and targeting our kids, our middle school and high school kids. The onset of tobacco in most cities and towns in Massachusetts starts in the 5th grade. So I work with middle school and high school faculty and staff, bringing the products to them, showing them what they are, showing them the packaging. So if they find them, if they find the packages, they know that someone is using a tobacco product that isn't a cigarette. None of the new tobacco products on the market are cigarettes, and they're all not only smokeless, but they're spitless. So when you, a year ago, you would say smokeless tobacco, and everybody thought of chewing tobacco and dip, and that's no longer the case. Now we're working with dissolvable tobacco tablets that are packaged to look like mints. We've got all the snus products. All of these products are fruit candy and alcoholic beverage flavored. They're all in very pretty, shiny packaging that kids are attracted to, and they're very cheap. You can buy small cigars, sometimes for $2 for $1. So I do those kinds of presentations, and if you'd like to see that presentation, I'd be more than happy to come back and do it for you and at some future meeting. It takes anywhere from 15 minutes to however many questions you have. So that's what I do. Do you have any questions?
I have a few, but you want to start with you, Linda, and go around?
So you've been working with SAFE up at the school with that committee and everything?
I started going to that meeting after I was appointed as an agent of the Board of Health here. Foxborough signed on to the program in July of last year, July of 2011. So we've done a whole year of getting to know each other. And,
Right.
yeah.
So like tonight we have National Night Out. Is that something that you're involved with too, or?
It isn't this year, only because I went on July 1st of
okay.
last year.
Yeah.
I went from working in 7 communities to working in 13 communities. So
Busy.
Yeah, I'm busy. I used to be involved in the Fall River National Night Out, and I did some of the early planning on the Taunton National Night Out, but I didn't do anything in Foxborough this year for National Night Out.
That's fine. I thank you for everything you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Definitely.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you also. Just curious, when there is a compliance problem, that there's no ID that you're being asked to bring it to when it's in a situation that they serve alcohol, you're being asked to bring that to the attention of the licensing board. What action is taken by licensing boards as a result of that type of finding?
It's information only.
Okay.
And one of the reasons for that is that if you have an instance where you have a sale of alcohol to a minor, if in your file on that establishment you also know that they have previous sales to minors on tobacco, then it's an indication that that's not their only problem, that there's a variety of things. There isn't, I'm not asking for any action to be taken. I don't think I have any legal right to ask. It's just for your information.
Okay, thank you.
Mark?
Thank you.
I actually, ironically, been following you on the different selectmen meetings, and I know you
Happens a
presented
lot.
to North Attleboro, and there's been good discussion. I was not aware of all the flavored cigars and the nicotine that look like Tic Tacs that don't come in the round package.
Did you see that meeting on TV?
I saw bits of it, and I read
did
it in
for the health department.
the Sun Chronicle. But then I started reading more, and it's a big product. The tobacco companies are kind of under the radar marketing all these, and they're going into stores. And I wasn't following it, and I had no clue. A Tic Tac packet, I figured it was Tic Tacs. If a child goes in and tries to buy it, I'm under the impression they don't get fined or ticketed, or they go away, but it goes on the store owner, right?
If it's a compliance check, and if it's either done by myself or by the FDA, The FDA also has a contract with Massachusetts where they have inspectors going out randomly, and I don't even know where they're going. So I don't know if they've been here or not. If it's a state-sanctioned compliance check, the students go into the store. The only thing they have on them in their pockets is the money I've just given them to make the buy and their cell phone. They don't have any IDs, wallets, everything is left in my car. So, and they're under contract with the state and they're trained by myself and by other state employees that if everybody is supposed to have an ID to buy tobacco unless you look like you're over 27. And in some stores, they ask everybody anyway.
Yeah.
But the way the program works is a student goes in, they ask for the tobacco product I've told them they need to ask for. It's not always cigarettes. They're supposed to be asked for an ID. If they're asked for an ID, they simply say, I don't have it with me, which is the truth. They don't have it with them. These kids are under contract not to lie. If the store owner then says to them, how old are you? They have to tell them the truth. There's no conversation. No, how old do you think I am? How old do I look? They don't do any of that. They just simply say, I don't have it. And if they say, how old are you? They have to say how old they are. And then it's up to the store personnel whether or not to make the sale. I've had store personnel in other communities, not in Foxborough, but actually in Somerset, said to one of my kids, how old are you? And he said, I'm 17. And the store owner said, close enough, and sold him the cigarettes. Things like that happen all the time.
But those are the people that work for you to
Right.
go in there. But an average 8th grader that goes into the store to buy it and gets turned away,
No.
and that information never comes back to the parents or to the town. It just,
If your city or town had a youth possession regulation, and Foxborough does not have one, Attleboro and North Attleboro do have them, it makes it illegal for minors under 18 to possess tobacco. Now, in the other communities, it's illegal for anyone to possess tobacco on school grounds, but that's the only place. Okay? So if your 14-year-old son went to the corner store and asked for a tobacco product and was successful in buying it because the clerk knew him or whatever, there is no penalty for the student if the town does not have a youth possession regulation. So if you did have a youth possession regulation, then the police or any agent of the Board of Health who witnessed that sale or who even saw the kid walking down the street smoking a cigarette has the legal right to stop them, confiscate their cigarettes, call a parent, find out where they bought the cigarettes, and if they can, if the information is voluntarily given, the police department can then
Follow
issue
through
the
with it.
ticket.
Okay.
Issue a ticket. But in Massachusetts, unless you have that youth possession regulation, it's not illegal for kids to attempt, and it's not illegal for them to purchase, and it's not illegal for them to smoke.
Okay.
It's illegal
Interesting.
for them to be sold to. That's how the law is written.
Okay.
And in Massachusetts, it's not illegal for parents and guardians to purchase tobacco products for their own children.
I didn't know that. There's an offer for Marilyn to come back for information and education for 15 minutes. Do you want to do that on
Yeah.
a different agenda?
Yeah, I think we should, so that the public sees it.
I'll reach out to you and hopefully after August, maybe September.
When it slows down a little bit.
Yeah.
It never slows down.
Good luck with that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No.
I think it'll be helpful, at least to get the word out,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of stuff out there.
Very interesting.
There is a lot of stuff out there, if you saw that TV show.
Right, thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, at 7:20, we have the public hearing that was continued. If the applicant wants to come up with counsel to the table, and Lorraine, do you want to read the legal notice?
No, you don't have to.
You don't have to.
No,
That's just-
we-
we're just
you're already
continuing.
Continuing, you don't have to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Evening.
Good evening.
And I know you were here before, but if you want to just reintroduce yourself for the record for the people at home.
Sure. It's Attorney Dean Plakius. I represent the applicant, DNN Corporation.
Thank you. My name is Nick Panagopoulos, and I live in Foxboro, 42 years. I remember I paid taxes first years I come here, $2,950. Today I pay $300,000. So
It's inflation, Nick.
and continue making new plans.
Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you.
And counsel, do you want to just introduce yourself, please?
Louis Cassis, Special Town Council for Foxborough, Town of Foxborough.
Okay, so that everyone knows, we 2 weeks ago, we had a hearing. There was a lot of information that was presented. A lot of it we went over, some of it we didn't. And I think it was the board's decision that it was kind of messy, and we gave you 2 weeks to get together and try to work something out. Just in summary, it seemed like there was the application to transfer a liquor license, and we weren't sure if the liquor license was actually valid, whose names were on it, who had issues with it, and we had a lot of correspondence, and even just this evening, we got more correspondence right before the meeting started. So I haven't spoken to really any of you guys since the last meeting, so I'm hoping you came back with some type of clarity. So actually, why don't you start, Lou?
I spoke to counsel for all of the parties, Mr. Natasha, client before you, and Mr. Friedman for the dissident parties. No one's reached any agreement, from what I can tell. It's still a dispute over money, but it's not a dispute that you can solve. Your job here tonight is to decide what to do with the license. You can either transfer the license, or you can take action for a violation of the license, which you really couldn't take tonight if you had notice on that, except on the hearing. Other than that, the application's in order. I think the application before you is now correct. At least the parties that are transferring are the parties who are the parties of record on your paperwork in the ABCCs. I made another suggestion to Mr. Plakius, and that was that where Mr. Panagopoulos has paid a lot of money to third parties, that really would be the consideration for the transfer of the license. So he's paid, I don't know, $150,000 out, and has or will pay out $150,000 or so, maybe more. And that should be the consideration on the application, which he's amended his application again tonight to reflect that. So it's really, there's no legal impediment to your taking action on the license. But the internal problem between the parties that seem to have an interest in the license has not been resolved, as far as I can tell, unless Mr. Plakius thinks it may have been resolved. I don't think it has been. But as I told Mr. Friedman, Mr. Plakius, and the attorney for Mr. Iantasha, this board cannot solve that problem. If someone's owed money, you can't award money. You can only act on the license. They have to go to court to figure out what their monetary issues are. And they're free to do that, regardless of what you do. They're free to go to court and fight that out. So that's all I can really tell you.
What's before you is really the application to transfer this license. And yes, it's accurate, there is a dispute between the parties. There may be a dispute between shareholders of the transferring corporation as to who's what and who's owed what. But that's a fight in state court. This is not a forum for that disagreement in the party. Mr. Panagopoulos has just presented to you paid or will pay over $185,000 in unpaid liabilities of the prior corporation, which is, not an insignificant amount of money for preserving the right to maintain this license. There is no consideration, there's no payment to Mike and Tasha for his staying on as manager. Mike is continuing to manage the license until the transfer takes place, simply to keep the business going. There is no ongoing future relationship. He is not benefiting by it. one of the points raised by the board at the last meeting was that there was a concern that, there's been some inconsistencies in the administration of this license in terms of who's who, and that somehow to allow the transfer would allow Mr. Natasha or the MJ Corporation to benefit by payment of money in spite of potential violations of the licenses. That is not the case. No one is benefiting here. This is a lose-lose situation, unfortunately. These functions or the ongoing operations there are at a loss. You'll see on the last page there of the amended sections 16 and 17 of the application, an itemization of the liabilities that Mr. Panagopoulos has voluntarily stepped up and paid. And the last page is a list of all the deposits that he has honored to functions made by the prior, commitments made by the prior management. He did not have to do this, but that number right now is $23,000, and it's growing every day as people agree to come back and hold their function.
So is that's what that means, is these people are still going to have their function there?
Those are the ones who have had their functions.
He have the facts already.
Okay.
They've already had them. And then there are some, I don't have a list of how many are still planning on coming. It's difficult to know those, what that number is.
I just didn't understand what
Right.
the discount meant, so.
Discount means,
Yep.
we gave you a deposit for $5,000, okay, we'll take $5,000 off the cost of the, we'll honor that deposit. So it's honoring a portion or a percentage of the deposit. That's what's that keeps the business going. The best result, I think, for this board tonight is to transfer this license and to end the current management's mismanagement of this license. And they are not getting any benefit from this transfer. And that will allow this business to continue. It will allow the continuation of the functions and the promises made to the general public. And I think in the public's interest, it's in the town's best interest, is to transfer this license immediately out of the prior management and into a more responsible operator who has a 40-year track record with the town and will continue to employ people in town, create tax revenue for the town, and to operate this establishment in a more experienced and responsible manner.
Thank you. I think we want to talk amongst ourselves, ask questions, and then open up to the public, because I know there was some correspondence that there was people in the public that wanted to participate, which we did not allow them at the last hearing last meeting 2 weeks ago. So I'll open up to the board for discussion.
So it's going from the manager currently, which is
MJ Holdings is the current licensee.
and now it's going to go to Nick.
T&N Corporation. Nick
DNN Corporation, I have before for the same name for 31 years.
Okay, so,
DNN Corporation.
and you will be the manager?
Yes.
And Mr. Anastasha is,
Will cease to be the manager upon approval of the transfer.
okay.
It will have
so
nothing to do with the
that's-
business.
Okay.
You will not have
Because
any-
that's what I thought you had
I-
said, was that
No,
he
until the
was
transfer is
manager.
effective. Until the transfer
To
is
the
effective.
dates,
we-
transfer the license after
The manager of
all
finance.
finished.
That was my only real question for right now.
Anyone else on the board?
Not at this point.
Section 16B that lists all of the payments for the liabilities listed here, those, we have received payment for the outstanding police details, Kevin?
Ms. Panagopoulos has indicated a willingness to remit payment to the town, although it's not his obligation. And if council indicates that continues to be in agreement, the amount is $9,376.40. And I would further add my recommendation to the board, if it's your pleasure to grant this transfer, we've had some unusual legal expenses in this case because of the dispute between the parties. And once again, although it's not fairly Mr. Panagopoulos' liability, I also don't think it's the taxpayers, because this is the product of a dispute between the parties, and the town should receive recompense for that. I don't think it's a large amount of money, but I do think it's fair to ask that. Those would be my suggestion for 2 conditions.
I would have third. I think he should honor all deposits that have been made, too.
Oh, the what?
Honor all the deposits that have been made. If anyone's made a deposit, it should be honored.
That is a difficult one because it's unknown what deposits are out there at this time, because the difficulty in obtaining records from the prior management, they're not forthcoming. Is that true, Nick?
Yeah.
If someone brings in a canceled check, it's like $5,000.
In some cases, these are substantial deposits. The money is simply not there by the admission of their own counsel. They don't have the money.
And those aren't monies that Nick was privy to previously then?
No.
It was all for this MJ?
Nick had no prior involvement in the operation of this
Okay,
previously.
okay.
Jim?
Kevin?
I've spent a great deal of time in the last 2 weeks talking to the principals involved in this, specifically Mr. Panagopoulos, and also Chris Spinizzola and Marjorie Claprud, the former part owners of the license. I have not spoken with Mr. Antachin. Lou and I have had a number of conversations as well. It is unfortunate that the business has gotten to the point that it's gotten. I won't say I have any idea why or how it got here. What I will say to the board, and I think it's important to note this for the record, is that the Spinizzola Claprud folks have a strong, outstanding reputation, and that I would hope it would be the case that that is not in any way diminished by anything that's been said or represented at these proceedings. I think it's important for that to be clear. I also had the opportunity to meet Mr. Panagopoulos in my office on Monday, and in addition to that personal meeting, also inquired about his operation in prior years, and he has an absolutely impeccable, wonderful reputation as a business owner and as an extraordinarily responsible operator of a liquor license. And he is as fine a gentleman as I've had the privilege of meeting in my life. So, as Lou has explained to me, the issue before the board is a fairly simple one. This is a transfer application, irrespective of dispute happening with the parties. The issue before the board is a clear one. Is Mr. Panagopoulos a suitable person to operate this liquor license? Are the premises proper premises on which to operate it? And if your finding is yes, and the paperwork counsel has indicated is appropriate, then there are no grounds to deny it. It's pretty much as simple as that. And if I'm misrepresenting your words, Lou, please correct me. And unfortunately, there are a lot of other issues out there swirling around. But those are not issues that really the town can allow itself to become party to. And that's very unfortunate, because you'd like to think that we could somehow inject some settlement or justice here, but you can't. It's not the board's province. You're a licensing authority, and you only get to act on what's in front of you, not maybe what you'd like to have in front of you.
Lou, the status of the existing license, is that valid right now?
Yeah, the license is valid till you take action against the license. Licenses don't become invalid because they do something wrong. You have to take action to either, I think...
Has the holder of the license met all the obligations from the state perspective and the town perspective to meet the requirements of the existing license? In other words, are we transferring a license that doesn't have merit? How do we do that?
The license before you is a valid license. You can transfer it. It may be in violation, but...
That's what so if the existing license is in violation...
It could be in violation. In other words, you could allege a violation. They have a hearing. They could just try and defend what happened. Maybe they could. But it's not in violation until you find it's in violation after notice and hearing. So right now, they're not in violation. There's a potential violation you could hear,
What's the potential violation?
that they transferred ownership without approval of the board.
Is that the only thing that surfaced that you've seen that?
I'm assuming maybe the manager was different too, but I don't know that to be a fact. Yeah, I think the question was whether he was hands-on, and I don't know that. He may well have been, he may not have been, I don't know if he was hands. But those would be the two potential violations. They transferred the stock, changed officers and directors, and perhaps the manager without permission of the board. I will point out, it's a violation, but at least in the persons who, or at least one of the people who was moved in, was already originally in the corporation. He was a minor shareholder at the inception and became a 50% shareholder at the end. So I've seen worse cases where total strangers have taken over a license and the owners have left. That's pretty serious because you have no clue who these people are. At least in this application, or at least in this operation, the parties were all there. They just increased or decreased their shares and changed their positions in the company. So you knew who you were dealing with. It wasn't like it was a total stranger. Just that the paperwork wasn't completely done right.
And the other question I have is on the financial side. So it's an existing corporation that's running the license that owes money, aside from the private money or deposits, they owe money to the town. So we're asked to transfer an existing license when they owe money to the town. And this is not the first time. We've had this discussion last year with water bills. And we were assured that the water bills were going to be paid if we did something, and they were paid, and we were assured that they weren't going to go into arrears, and they have gone into arrears. So now this is the second time that we're saying, well, give us something, we'll pay you the money, and we'll move on. How do you...
What you do is you transfer the license contingent upon payment of all...
Or why hasn't the money been paid when it's owed to the town to even get to this table?
Well,
when it's in arrears, the police, the water, all that stuff?
Well, the present licensee evidently doesn't have the money to pay it.
But the present licensee is still running the license right now.
He is.
And he's still running the business with that license.
He is. If you cancel that license, my guess is it would never get paid.
And it would be coming back to the town, and then it would have to be reissued.
And then whoever the new owner was would have no obligation to pay it. You can make a transfer contingent upon events, and as long as the applicant agrees to that, he can agree to pay those bills.
Okay, thank you.
You can hold it up. You can make a contingent upon payment. It goes to the ABCC, gets approved, comes back to you. You cannot issue that license till all fees are paid.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
So, James, for clarification for the board, myself, Nick gets this license approved, transfer approved. Who is this board going to cite as being in liquor license violations? Would it be the old licensee?
Cite nobody. It's cured.
It's cured. So there's nobody to cite. Right now, we can only postpone this whole thing and then bring Mr. Antosha in.
Correct.
As a violator.
Correct. Potential violators, depending upon what happens.
Correct. Better language. Okay.
Jim?
So
I
just so
don't
the
know what-
board's clear on that.
I don't know where that gets you, though. I don't
I
know.
understand that, but I just want, all aspects of this to be brought out because this is very confusing.
Jim? One of the things I had explored with Lou, because we wanted to be able to put this in front of the board if you were interested in this option, is if you somehow wanted to clarify ownership of the current license and or send a message to license holders, the board does not like what they did, i.e. operating in a very peculiar manner, i.e. failing to divulge to the board who the ownership is, potentially who the manager is. One option would be to not approve this transfer application, then schedule a show cause hearing to revoke the current license, and then you'd have to go through findings. And I believe what Lou said is that you can do that. Problem is, all those folks that are out there right now, two problems. Number one is our $9,376 that are owed the taxpayers, probably we could not get it from a new license applicant because there'd be just no way you could require that. Secondarily, all those folks that are out there right now with deposits expecting to have their weddings there at this facility would be thrown into chaos, limbo, because who would be the new license holder? Are their deposits with the old business valid or not? I mean, it would be very unfortunate for completely innocent parties, i.e. young men and women who are looking to have their wedding. And it would just be tragic. So as much as that is a possibility, and I know the board, as I've spoken with you individually, has expressed some concern with that potential, there's some serious implications that are very unfortunate to innocent parties. And that's, frankly, something Lou and I, in advising you, were trying to avoid.
But the board could also issue one day with beer and wine license or alcohol licenses for those establishments at that point if we did go in the direction, no?
Yes, except there is no application before you for that.
I understand that.
So that's
There's
another.
only so many you can do
Oh,
in a year.
And further, the entity that would request the one day would be who? Mr. Panagopoulos, MJ Holding. Who is MJ Holding? I mean, we went through those scenarios and couldn't come up with a way to put that option in front of you in any way that we thought was responsible.
All right, well, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the audience that wanted to give some input? If you can come to the microphone. And again, just introduce yourself for the record.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Chris Spinazzola. I'm one of the principals of MJ Holding Corporation. We are here tonight. I'm here with my wife and my partner, Marjorie Clapprood. I think because I think Mr. Blakey said it best. There's only losers in this last 18 months. And it has been a very difficult situation for all of us. We have lost our life savings. I'm sure Mr. Panagopoulos has testified already how much money he's put into this, and I'm sure Mr. Ntacha could talk about that as well. And we are not here to bash anybody else. We are here to tell you that we felt that nothing's changed in 2 weeks since we were here before. When this board sent back through its town manager and through this board to each of us the charge to go back and work it out and come back and cure it the right way by applying and fixing the amended version of the application to show a true reflection of the corporate structure the way it was, and then to transfer in cooperation with Mr. Panagopoulos this license. That's what we were asked to do. That's what we tried to do for 2 weeks, and we were met with roadblocks every day. We had Mr. Panagopoulos has owned that building for a long time. He does not. We cannot force him to do a lease with us. But we relied on our conversations and our back and forth negotiations up through May to continue there for a long time and to fulfill our obligations, which would have been to buy Mr. Ntacha out of that company and to move forward as the principal owners in a long-term agreement with Mr. Panagopoulos. That did not happen for whatever reason. On June 1st, in the court agreement that is cited in those papers, a mandated court agreement between the parties, which I signed on behalf of MJ Corporation, it was said that all parties shall come to an agreement on the liquor license transfer, or that license will revert to the town on August 1st. That was brought up, I think, at the last hearing, and that did not happen on August 1st. We have not agreed to the transfer of the liquor license. We are asking the board to deny the application. One of the reasons is because we never had any part of that application. We were not consulted. We had to come to town hall and get a copy of that application ourselves from the town manager's office because we had no idea what was in that application. We have reputations. We would like to be in this business somewhere down the road. It may not ever be in Foxborough, frankly, and it's going to take us a long time to recover from this financially. But We don't want to put information on an application that we're part of. 50% owners, as we showed you in that corporate document, and have it be either misleading or information that we're not sure about. Contrary to what Attorney Plakio said, on July 9th, we submitted all the information about deposits to Mr. Panagopoulos. The contracted events, the deposits that were taken, and who was responsible, and what the menus were. We did our best to cooperate every step along the way with every court decree, as well as everything that we could possibly do to make this as painless on our employees and our depositors, brides and grooms and bar mitzvahs and so on. That's what we've done the entire time. And we're just saying to you that we believe, now there's a new amended version of the application. If they're going to the 2000 amended version, the 2000 original corporate structure, then we have an affidavit from the original corporate partner, Mr. Anastas, who has also not been consulted in any way, shape, or form about this application process. We also we feel strongly that going forward, we wish nothing but the best for the brides and grooms and the people who have the events at 2 Washington Street. And we hope it goes on well. But we have emails from this morning from brides who have still been told their event will not happen without them depositing again or making further payments again. Now, I'm not sure where that's coming from. We don't know if who's telling the brides that, but that's people we have directed, because we've been trying to respond to every one of them. So we're asking you for your consideration tonight to please send a message that you don't have to get involved in the corporate structure of a private company. We understand that. And we apologize to you, to the police chief, to the people of Foxborough that we've kind of got into this mess. And we have to take some responsibility for that, and we do. But to be honest with you, every one of us has played a role in that. And all you can do as a board is to look at the current license, the current application, whatever that may be today, and say, is it honest and truthful, and do we have everything we need to rule on this fairly in terms of a transfer? And we're not out here to hurt anybody, but we're here to protect our names and reputations as well.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Motion to close the public.
If I may.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, and through you to the members of the board and to town manager. My name is Marjorie Claproot, partner and in life and in work with Chris Benazzola, 25% shareholder of MJ Corporation, and have spent the last 12 years at Christopher's side, working to do great work, I think. I would only add one thing for your consideration tonight. It's true, as you've all said, that you can't get involved in the corporate entities and what they want, what they don't want, what they have purchased, what they have invested. But what I ask the board to do is to take, as I know you do, the role as the licensing and the governing board very seriously. And we feel as though, as 50% owners who have been there for 12 years and have paid happily millions of dollars in taxes and have paid happily lots of money to Mr. Panagopoulos for that beautiful building and have invested millions of dollars in making that building even more beautiful, we honor.
I ask you to hold on for 1 minute. We just have to change the tape. Hold that emotion. All set?
Up.
Wait for up, all the way up. There you go.
Sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We honor and respect so much the opportunity, and it's an opportunity that has been, we believe, not taken as seriously as it should be by our partners and those that we've worked with and the parties that are here. A license to serve liquor, alcohol, beer, and wine is so precious and so important and so valuable for it to be treated as though, well, I don't know who owned it. You know, we do know who owned it. We were there. Chris was one of the original partners. We have an affidavit from the other original partner, other than Mr. and Tasha. And together they represent far more than 50%. And we know who owns it now. Chris and I are 50% partners, not just sweat equity. We took every dime that we've got in the world and borrowed against our home to purchase those shares. And to not be consulted or respected, and yet to somehow have to answer to those brides and grooms, that's who they call. They're calling us. We're the ones that they looked at across the table. We're the ones that helped them with the menus. And we're the ones that feel so responsible, and it just wouldn't be right. It's just not right. It can be cured. It should have been cured. You were so right 2 weeks ago. These attorneys are smart. They can do this with us and with our attorney and straighten it out, make it right, make it clean. I'm a law school dropout, but I know this. The clean hands whole function is to have our community and to have everyone that works in it and all of the people that we employ and all of the business that we do with the town and with the state to have clean hands. And this transaction is very, very, very tarnished. And we don't want our names to be associated with the passage of this application. And tonight's application, I would like to end by asking for a copy of it, because we weren't even provided the courtesy of a copy of what I understand is now the third application for transfer. I don't know who's on it. I don't know who you're saying the owners are. I don't know what you're representing to be the liabilities. So if there are promises there, particularly promises either to our former employees or to those who contracted with Christina's for events, I think, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, we deserve to see a copy of that so that we know, and I can show a bride, you know what? Mr. Panagopoulos is going to take your deposit, and this time he means it. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for the record, everything that's submitted to us is public record, so if there's no copies available before you leave tonight, you can take a copy.
Thank you.
All right.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Open it up for discussion.
During their speeches just now, Nick, I have to ask you, what was so amusing to the two of you? I saw snickers, I saw smiles, and giggles. Why?
Exactly, I don't understand what did you say.
Am I the only one who saw it?
I didn't see it.
I didn't see it. I was
just
listening.
watching.
I see snickering, giggling like I don't understand why. Like a reason.
I think he has a happy face regardless, so let's just put it off as nervousness. I was looking past and I didn't see it, so it's a uncomfortable situation. So more discussion, questions.
I thought the board did say to go back and straighten this out. I thought, Jim, we don't have the minutes in front of us. I thought your words in the minutes were directed at the attorney, Dean, and said, I take offense in you putting this on us, something, 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 and then you said, this is not a board's issue. You should go back, straighten this out amongst yourselves, get this all taken care of, and then come back, and then we'll deal with it. I see that part of it's been straightened out. I know we have no jurisdiction on the other part of it, but for the record, nothing's been straightened out that the board asked to be seen, to be taken care of, that all interested parties, I believe, I don't have the tape review right now, maybe you guys can help me with this, all interested parties should be, this is a dispute amongst yourselves.
I think
should all be
we
taken
asked
care of.
that it's, that the manager on record and everything is was complete, because we didn't even know at that point who was who, because we had one thing saying one thing, we had another saying another, and the attorneys were speaking. So, Lou, I guess I'd ask you if, are we looking at a clean transfer here or not?
The original application that was filed reflected changes in ownership that had not been approved.
Exactly.
You could not approve that.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, you got to go back to the last time you approved whoever was on the application,
Right.
which was the original application.
Yeah.
That has been corrected. Now, whether or not that solved any underlying problems, I don't know, and I doubt it did. But you can only consider an application from
what we signed,
what you had approved the first time,
right,
to now.
Yeah. And that's what we have in front of us
That's
this
Jeff
evening.
Money.
And that's what we would be approving.
Correct.
Right?
That's what they're asking us to approve, with the conditions of police details paid and attorney's fees paid, with no...
Well, he's got all
All
them
that's
listed out here.
already been taken care of, that list, I believe.
All the
It's been
obligations
taken
that
care
we
of.
owe to the town have been paid, with the exception of the police detail, which we're prepared to pay this evening.
And attorney fees.
Attorney's fees.
So that's the only squeeze we have.
I'm not asking
No,
for a
I'm just saying
squeeze.
that's all we have. And
I'm
we-
not-
but as
I'm
Kevin
not-
has said, if we don't do that and we take the license, we lose all that. Blah,
It's
blah,
not
blah.
here to debate or anything. I think that's, I just want to make sure that that's what we had asked for, I believe, is that we go from, what we are transferring from what we believe and know is clean to a new person, new entity. That's it. I mean, that's all we can do, Mark. We can't.
And the checks and balances would be the ABCC to approve it on top of it.
That's right. And
they'll scrutinize this also.
And it won't be, we won't have any wrongdoings when that investigation goes.
I mean, my biggest concern was it was not a valid license, and you're telling me on the record it is valid.
It's valid till you take action on it.
But my feeling is if we took action on it, it wouldn't be valid much longer.
Probably.
So that doesn't give me a lot of comfort. I was really hoping that everyone would be whole coming in here, and you gave it a good effort. And I'm hearing that it's too complicated to figure out the past brides and the future brides, and even to pay the police detail, which has been on the books for quite a while, and already started the process with our police chief's time. So in 2 weeks, I'm a little disappointed that, that smart people can't come together and say, we're going to bite the bullet, it's a business decision, we're going to go the extra mile and pay the police detail, reach out to the past brides, which is an extremely emotional time for them, or whoever. I see high school, parties and all this stuff, and to say, well, it's such a mess, we're going to forget what happened in the past, it's kind of messy, but we're going to move forward, when I know there's people that are responsible for this still on the license and not at this meeting. You're asking a lot from this board, who has to deal with all the other liquor licenses that have been here for a long time, plus a dozen that just got here with Patriots Place, to say, well, it was a nice try, and we'll get you on the next time. And this is not the first time that bills haven't been paid, and it's the same discussion that we had 2 years ago. I'm sorry for that.
If I could just respond to that.
Sure.
Nick did make a commitment to the police chief on paying that bill at least a week ago, so that was never been an issue that was not going to be paid.
I think my point is, these bills have been to the point where it's going to court already.
Right.
And for the 2 weeks to not write a check because you're wondering what the board's going to do doesn't give me a lot of comfort. And I should start off by saying, Nick, I think you've stepped up and paid a lot of money, and I know you've been here for a long time. But it's just such a, in my opinion,
Really, I
not
make
there.
the check tonight for the police. I am ready to give the board the police. But now if you go in the court, different story. Because I say, this police you call to the chief to say, send me to protect me, and you say no pay next day, this is no fair. He stay out the family all night to protect the people going to work, and you say I don't pay for about 6-7 months, no pay. All this one, you have details right here, which months no pay. This is no fair. Never happened to me. I passed 3 chiefs of this town here. Chief McCarthy, Chief Goddard, and Mr. Chief O'Leary.
Understood, thank you.
One is just died 2 years ago, McCarthy. Chief Goddard, he have an accident for the heart. He killed down Plainville. And all this one is the chief, this town is very lucky he have these chiefs. He passed all these years because he come into my place, I call, I want lunch together, and I say, Chief, what I doing if you this wrong? Say to me, not doing this one, not doing this one. He protects. He never forgot these people to say this one. I am, no yesterday, this place there. I work in 18, 19 hours a day to build up everything. If you now I close the restaurant to renovate. If you don't have the license, I can't touch it. Maybe close for 6 months or 4 months or 2 months. That's all the story. Because the time I turn the license to Mr. Tasha, I say to the board, this license, please, I won't stay to the place if anything happen. You never write it down for that. Too bad I don't have this information. You know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lorraine had
Jim, I just want to say to everybody, I think this is really so difficult for us because of all the background problems that are going on here, but I think really my expectation was that from a legal perspective that the town be safeguarded from any concern in terms of asking that question. Can we transfer this license legally without any concern? And I'm hearing the answer is yes. So I think,
I would just say they could appeal and
Right, but
complain at the ABCC. They may see it differently. The court may see it differently. That's how I see it.
okay. So I think understanding that, or I understand that we are in the best place we could possibly be in terms of any transfer, I guess, could be questioned that way. I feel comfortable that at least our attorney has found the answer that I was hoping we would hear by today. That was one thing. And, I think the idea of, to me, transferring the license, I think I would vote in favor of it because I want to make sure that the business can continue and that all of those impending parties could be addressed so that people are able to have all their special events honored. So, and I'm concerned if we hold this up that jeopardizes them even more. I'm not sure, you had mentioned, Lou, about potentially having it contingent that there be the requirement to honor all deposits that may have been made. But is there a question like you don't know who?
The only concern
you have
is
a list of future
we
events.
have already demonstrated to the board that they have
They have
immediately
honored.
July 1st started honoring
Right.
deposits or a percentage of them. And we'll continue to do that. The only reservation I have, and I'm certainly not excluding that we would honor all the deposits, so we just don't know what that number is.
Right.
And now, I apologize, Marjorie, I do remember you did submit information. I may have misspoken. I just wasn't aware or have not seen that information that was submitted from the prior management. And we can certainly make a commitment to honor those deposits. We want to do the right thing.
Well, question, Marjorie and Chris, is that information to this party of all the obligations that were out there from the past?
All the information from names, contact, emails, exactly what they ordered, how much they put down, and how much is left in the balance is not only with Mr. Panagopoulos, but multiple copies, and we offered to do a much better transition, much smoother, that was rejected. But I do have to clear the record, if I may, Mr. Chairman. The deposits have not been honored to this point. And I'd be happy to give names, my husband would be happy to give names of brides that I've spoken with as recently as 3 o'clock this afternoon, before we met with Mr. Anastas to ask him if he had been consulted. His name is on this original thing. I haven't seen it, but I understand if they're going back that Mr. Anastas is saying, I don't want it transferred, nobody called me, and he owned the same as Mr. and Tasha. So they haven't been honored, and this woman emails me and calls me and starts crying and asking me, where's my $7,290? They won't honor it. They being either Mr. Panagopoulos or Mr. Natasha. I'm not sure which. We've called, we've asked, we haven't been answered.
And I think that's what I was afraid of, that the 2 weeks that this is, and we're hearing one side and we're hearing the other, and this is not the table or the forum to be doing this. And so, yes, Kevin?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, a suggestion, subject to loose approval, that the motion say that all deposits be honored to the extent they are reported to Mr. Panagopoulos. And further, that if they are not honored, and this board becomes aware of it, that can potentially be grounds for a revocation hearing at a later date. That makes it pretty clear what's at stake here. Luke?
Do that.
Or there's another option to give it a second try and come back in 2 weeks. That way you've had the opportunity to sit face and face. If you're saying you haven't seen the list, I don't know how they can say they'll honor it. And if you're saying it's a lot worse and they had the opportunity and they haven't honored it, to send them both off and hoping for the best, and then get us involved after the fact to try to revoke something is a complete waste of time, in my opinion. So if, the other option, we either say yes, we say no, or we say 2 more weeks to
With all due
get it
respect,
together.
during the last 2 weeks, we have engaged in extensive talks, at least I have, with their attorneys involved, and it's just surrounded around, it just revolves around paying them $150,000 on top of all the liabilities that we have. So that's been the focus of the discussion, and it's been, pay us, we'll go away. So this is not the appropriate forum for a private civil dispute, and
It shouldn't be.
and it is
At
not.
all.
I do not want to delay these to resolve a civil dispute, which may take substantially longer to
Yeah,
analyze.
and I understand, but the fact that the civil dispute information is in our packet and it's being brought up, it's tough to ignore it.
As far
So-
as, James, what is your intention if you were to secure the license? What's your intention to do with it?
Exactly right now is the license there can service, but just I make insurance or have insurance before. I thought he have insurance, these people, for their liability, have insurance. I make insurance last week to make sure nothing happen, anyone sleeper, no insurance, I don't know how it's working. I pay $4,000 for insurance, for the liability insurance, for the liquor.
Do you intend to keep it in its exact location and operate the business, is my question.
I operate the business, but it's very tough because I can't renovate the place if you don't have guaranteed the license.
I understand that, but if you were granted the license, are you staying in that location with the
yes,
license?
yes,
And you're going
yes,
to
I
continue
stay
to open?
Oh yeah, you
run
never
this
close the
business?
place for so many years. It's never I plan to close the place because now I renovate the place. Now I am ready. I come 17 design to make steakhouse there, the restaurant. But if you don't have all this information for the license, this one I can't spend money because you talk about between $450,000 carpet for $100,000 carpet. And just I ordered for Georgia to come in, and all the steakhouse front to change all this ones. It's not just. I don't have machine to cut money. I pay the meals tax to these people. I pay the town the water, Electric company called $24,000. Gas company called $12,000. The whole Smith called $87,000. And a vegetable called $32,000. Say, wait a minute, house can't sleep. You have call one after another every day.
If I may, one more thing, James, to direct the board, whatever we decide here is going to set case precedents for the next situation. There is one like this. So if the board does grant this transfer, it'd be pretty unlikely that if you ever did decline a transfer in the future for a same situation, that the ABC would not be too pleased with that. Because
well, I think we have to be more alert to who our managers are in our establishments too, because it's that's part of our responsibility as well as
and I agree, but it's not. We're not paid employees of the town
Not
of the
paid
state
anyways, no.
to be policing the situation, other than if you voluntarily go around to yourself. I just want to stress that you're setting a precedence for the future, Lou. Am I correct or incorrect?
Every decision you make,
Sets the next case precedence
and
up.
I'd like to see consistency.
And so that's the scary part here for me.
well, we have to let all of our licensees know when we get our licenses in December and we sign them off and it says Linda Walsh is the manager, Linda Walsh should be the manager until you come in front of me in March and say, well, now it's Mark Sullivan, whatever it is. It's very clear. I don't know what happened here. Something happened in transit somewhere, and I don't know. Obviously, there's a lot of history here, but all we can do right now is going forward with what our attorney has suggested to us, and Mr. P can, go on with his things. My only question is, if you're going to renovate, is that going to have any implications to the brides or the...
No, this one with the
You're just
section.
talking about the front part.
The front part.
So
Plus
you
the
just
carpet,
the restaurant
plus the carpet, all the
Yeah.
function back.
I see.
And once he does that, he has to come back in front of the board for...
Floor plan.
Exactly.
For the floor plan, the
So,
planning board and all that stuff. So.
We'll be back.
And I agree with everything you said, Linda, except when you said that, it's our responsibility to make sure the manager's
Well-
the manager. It's, when they get the license, it's their responsibility to make the application, pay the
It
fees.
is. But when we're
and
looking at
change
them
it.
in December, we should, I think that we should take the time to make sure that it is, in fact, Linda Walsh that's the manager there. I mean, we...
If the board so orders,
I don't know how you would do that.
If-
unless you
Mr.
visit-
Chairman?
1 second, Kevin, just 1 second. Unless you go into all the different managers and all the different restaurants. When the application's in front of us, you assume that they took the time
Well,
to,
right.
to do it right, or if they've changed it, they would notify us. It's not our job to go to all the
I'm
establishments.
not saying that we
and-
have to do that, but I'm just saying that, this is a heads up because I never thought this would happen. I would assume that if you were a license holder and you have a new manager, you'd be proud enough to bring him up to us and say, this is the new manager. It happens on a monthly basis. All the other licensees come up and say that. We don't have to have a big hearing about it. We just, transfer it to, not the license itself, but the new manager.
Okay.
And I think that Sandra and the girls in the office, every December, they go through this, So,
Can we ask that just as part of the license packet, we get a copy of the corporate structure from the Secretary of State where, so that we could see that there are any changes ourselves?
Sandra, do you have some input? Yeah.
So you close the public hearing.
A recent conversation, actually it wasn't recent, it was a couple of years ago. A conversation that I had with Attorney Kelly at the ABCC when I had a great concern because we had a manager who was fired. So there was no manager on site. So my concern was, they hadn't chosen a manager, they hadn't come forward with the paperwork yet. And he told me at that time that the ABCC doesn't really hold that much stock in a manager because there's a corporate owner. It's the corporate owner that ultimately is responsible. They're the responsible party. The manager is on site to make sure that day-to-day operations, that liquor sales, that the law is complied with in that way. But ultimately, it's the owner who's responsible. So, I'm going through this right now with another establishment where, I'm going through a manager change. The manager who was there is not there. We don't always know who's on site. Some of these manager names, like Mr. Antosha, at the time, he's always been manager. I went through the paperwork. He's been the manager. He's been the manager of record. Was he on site 24/7? No. But you know what? I don't know how you enforce that completely either. That's a tough thing. But the ABCC doesn't hold, we here in Foxborough, because of your very strong commitment to enforcing the liquor license regulations, that's the person you do hold responsible. But the ABCC doesn't look at it quite the same way. It's the corporation who they hold responsible. So I hope that helps you.
That's a very good point, but who is the corporate owners right now is the whole question.
I think that's what's been changing over time.
Well, it's who applied originally. That's the paperwork we have. That's the legal paperwork that was filed with us. Anything else was never filed with us. How do you look at, something as being legal when it hasn't been filed? You can only go by the original paperwork.
The original paperwork was filed with the corporation. This corporation changed over time. So it's not the manager that we're having the issue with, it's the corporate documents.
Right, but the corporate documents that we have originally, the last ones that were approved by the board would really be the ones that, legally.
That's what we have in this package.
That's what we have
And so basically what it comes down to is by not, the penalty that's going to be bestowed to the persons that changed the corporation but never made it on record or transferred it, eventually this is what caught up with them. It's a very good point, Senator. Thank you, because it gave me a lot of clarification. Because to make the statement, manager, corporate on record, that's what we have. The corporations has changed internally many times without notifying everything. And if you look at this corporate document here, I can't even read it. This thing here, right?
I think that's
a court
Superior Court.
Yeah. A decision, but I've never seen anything like this in my packet before, is my point.
The reason, I'm sorry, this one happened for 15 minutes between the court and the lawyers.
But my thing is, the thing is right here, unfortunately, the people that never transferred the license to make them show themselves as a shareholder in the corporation now have no legal claim in front of us because that's not the paperwork supplied to us. So I think that is really what's going to turn me here, unfortunately, as much as I was going the other way. But I'd like to make a motion, if I could, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to transfer, help me out, Lou.
MJ Holdings
to
DN
DNN Corporation.
MJ Holding Corp. to DNN Corporation.
with the conditions of police details paid up to date at this point in time, unpaid balance of $9,376.40. And for all of our attorney fees to be paid due to the town's cost, and to hold liable all deposits that you have been presented with to date, as of right now, to date of the 7th.
Uphold them, right? Is that what you said?
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? No. So the motion carries 3-1.
James develops against.
Did you have a check for the town?
We do have a check.
I have for a police department. Yeah. Give me a pen to
Take
sign.
those. James, you want to take a 5-minute recess?
Thank the board for the time. This is a very difficult situation and a difficult decision for you to come back to.
Okay.
Oh, it already had the amount on it. Thank you. That's correct. That's the amount.
Correct amount?
Yep, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, and now that it's over, I do
I
wish
appreciate.
you luck
Thank
with
you
the,
to start the work, you know, to renovate, to make up day, because I put the sign close there, say close for renovate, and people say, well, you close whole thing? Now I have to sign there to say the bar is open and dining room closed for.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Good luck.
At this time, we'll take a 5-minute recess. We'll come back at 8:35,
5-minute recess, board.
just to relax. Tired.
Really, thank you so much for giving us the time.
All right, thank you. And thank you for the 5-minute break. We are all set, Kevin? Next item on the agenda is to talk about the National Grid Attorney General's recent fine against National Grid. Kevin?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I just wanted to report to you and through you to the public, because we've gotten a lot of calls. The Attorney General has levied a substantial fine against National Grid. Thank you. Attorney General has levied a substantial fine against National Grid for their failings during Tropical Storm Irene. And we've had folks ask what the dispensation of the money is. So here's what we've learned through Representative Barrows. Number one, that fine is not yet finalized because it is appealable to DPU, and National Grid has appealed it or announced they plan to. When and if DPUs hear it and sustains the fine, the second question we've been asked is, will any money come back to individual consumers? We don't know the answer to that yet. Again, that'll be a feature of DPU. There's also a legislative effort to cause part of that fine or all of it to be shared with homeowners. Third question, is the town going to get any money to recompense it? We got 75% of our costs covered through the disaster declaration, but 25% we had to pay ourselves. And again, there's a legislative effort to get the town its 25% back that it had to invest.
What was the total cost to the town, roughly?
We got reimbursed somewhere around 100, when it was all said and done, right around 100. It might have been a little above, a little below. So we had about another 25,000. Well, let's see, that's 75%. So I don't do math in my head really well, but 25. You do? Good. Here we go. I get a smart student.
That's right, we do.
So 25% of $100,000.
Should I do the math?
Do it later for me, and then teach me. Thanks. So that's what the town's out. I would say, frankly, from my conversations with Jay, don't hold your breath. But legislature's going to try to do the right thing. We'll see what DPU does.
Thanks.
Question?
Sure.
Kevin, having a discussion with some some townspeople there. Their concerns are that those fines are just going to be sent back on the rate holder. And it's just going to be an indirect taxation through them to pay their gratuities. And what protection does the Attorney General say anything about that they can't do that? Does it come out of it?
Current state law, there's no information on that. All there is that if there's a fine, it goes to the state's general fund. That's it.
So the second thing means is that this fine could be just a bunch of wasted time and effort, because it's just going to basically put the burden on the ratepayer, and it's going to be, just as the attorney just said, Dean, earlier, a lose-lose for everybody.
Well, I know through Jay, Representative Barrows, there's an awareness at the legislature, the people that it cost money were the individual consumers and the cities and towns. And so why should the state, Commonwealth, why should the Commonwealth Treasury get all that money if the fine is sustained, which basically means there was a wealth transfer between homeowners and towns to the state, because they got the fine instead of all of us getting it. So I think there's some awareness that equity demands that the homeowners get some of that to recompense them, and the towns get back what they had to shell out for the taxpayers. Whether or not that wisdom prevails, we'll see.
But I think if the National Grid or any of the utilities want to raise their rates, they can't just do that. They have to go in front of the Department of Public Utilities.
They're prohibited from raising their rates to cover this fine. Absolutely. They can't do that.
That's basically what people are concerned
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood you. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, that's actually
They can't.
absolutely forbidden. This has to come out of stockholder profit.
And there would be, if they ever wanted to raise their rates, just like in insurance regulations, they'd have to go in front of the DPU and
Yes.
ask that. Okay, just so I can make sure everybody's questions are answered.
Yep.
And I think phase two is what's on the horizon. Like if you're in an airline and you're sitting on the tarmac for 3 hours, it's an inconvenience. And now with the new legislation there, you get it back immediately on your ticket price or on your credit card. And I think that's what they're lobbying the legislation is. If you're out for, if the legislation thinks it should be a 3-hour storm and you're out 6 hours without electricity, then you get that immediately back on your bill, and it says line item, extra 3 days. So I think that's what they're fighting for now, but I don't know if it's going to get there. So, but and on the same note, now that it's all over, we had 2 storms, the Irene and the October storm, and I guess just the public reach out to all the people that stepped up, town workers, police, fire, volunteers, even the selectmen with all our emergency 10 or 12 meetings. It could have been a lot worse. The bright side is the relationship that we have with National Grid is a lot stronger than it was before. If the electricity is out for a couple minutes, we're getting emails, they're telling us why it's out.
Yep.
Might not help to know why it's out, but that communication, which was one of the 2 reasons that the fines were so high, communication and staffing. And they've sent the trucks and the efforts to Foxborough, so that's the silver lining, I guess. Next on the item is, next on the agenda, the fiscal year 13 goals and objectives.
Yeah.
And I can describe it, but I think, Lorraine, you put this together for the board. Do you want to talk about this?
Well, the last time we met, we went through this list. Kevin had highlighted certain ones that were going to be Board of Selectmen responsibilities and others that were going to be joint board and Kevin responsibilities. This list that we have now are strictly the town manager goals and objectives, and then Kevin has taken it and expanded these to add certain actions to them, which he sent to us by email. So I think, Kevin, you had mentioned there were a couple of questions.
Yeah, there were a couple of, what I try to do is take the board's goal and then express it into steps that would make it more concrete for me in terms of what I needed to get done and make sure that you're happy with those steps. Is this what you want? A couple of them were a little fuzzy and I thought might have duplicated other things, so I did a little blending, not a lot. The last one, I really don't understand this one. And so, you see, I just put a question mark there because I kind of struggled. Number 21. So I kind of need, I need your help a little here to tell me what it is you'd like, because I wasn't able to hang anything on that in terms of steps.
I don't know if we're looking at the same
What
document.
is 21?
Adhere to timeliness for steam
All
events.
right, you have this one from
Yeah.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Then I took that and I turned it into another document.
Okay, that's, I don't think we
Emailed
have.
that.
Oh,
I think
You
he-
emailed it, yeah.
I think
Right,
he
we don't
emailed
have
it.
that in
Okay.
our packet.
So 21 is the last item on this Excel
Yeah.
spreadsheet. Adhere to timeliness?
Yep.
Yeah, 21 is the last one on, I put numbers on them on this
Okay.
one.
I think
But if
that-
you don't all have that, then you can't do much with this tonight. But, so we'd have to come back another day. But what I said to you in the email was, I wanted the department heads to get this so that they could comment too, because a lot of these affect them, and I've already started getting a fair amount of comments.
Saturday night email.
Right. Yeah, the people who actually do the work. And that may lead to some amendments here. So what I had suggested in the memo is, if you were going to do anything with this tonight, you do it as sort of a first reading. Allow me the opportunity to amend it vis-à-vis comments from the department heads and bring it back to you a second time with any changes clearly delineated. And so, since it's not here, this is real simple. I'll have that 2 weeks.
We'll do that in 2 weeks.
And
so-
put it on the agenda next time. And then if you could think about, when you see it, number 21, what that means, because I want
Yeah.
to get it done for you.
I think
but
it's
I'm
one
not
that Ginny had put this on that had to do with just the processing of, application for certain events. I don't know if there was a rushed one
I
at
think it
the
was-
time.
Yeah, I'll get an email on a Thursday for a Saturday event.
Yeah.
Or like the boxing match.
Things like that, yeah.
Things like that, yeah.
Okay.
I think just, so it leaves 5 of us scratching our head. Do we need to respond to this? Is it as a courtesy? If there's questions and you get it on a Thursday,
There are.
how possibly do you
Yeah.
get the information back?
This
on
is
it?
legitimate. It happens infrequently.
Mm-hmm.
It happens more often than you know, because we shortstop it in here. But it does. I wouldn't counsel the board, to be overbearing on it, because they really do make a good faith effort to get them in, and it really is typically clearly a mistake, miscommunication. Their counsel doesn't get something in. So, given the volume of events that they have, they do a pretty good job, I got to say. But one slips occasionally, and that's a natural consequence of the volume.
Actually, it's if it comes down to it, is usually the chairman has the authority to grant extension of time. I know it happened 2 years ago with Bruce Springsteen. Thunderstorm kept him out.
Yeah.
Stuck at the airport, yeah.
So it's up to the chairman's discretion at that point in time to make any changes. And so it's all on you, James.
But the big picture on this is 21 items. We've all looked through it. We've whittled it down. We've rated it, given it to Kevin. He's taken out his versus ours. And does anyone have any objections with this as it goes through the department
Nope.
heads?
No,
No.
it looks
So in
good.
2 weeks, you'll get feedback from the department heads. You'll get an updated list.
Any update, yeah. And I would encourage the board members, if you all have comments and you want to give them to me before the next meeting, if there's any more editing, I can get as much editing done before the meeting as possible.
Yep.
Good.
Okay.
We had an item on here on gift acceptance policy, and this is something that has been kicking around for a while, and I don't know what Kevin's going to say, but from what my experience is, if, do you look a gift horse in the mouth if someone's offering you $1,000 for a program? Does it come with strings? Is it going to cost us the next year to implement it? So that has been kind of kicking around. Who says yes? How does it get to the board? Has it been vetted out? So with that, is that what you had in mind?
All I've got in mind is this. Right now, via board policy, because this is a delegation of your authority, in a Massachusetts statute, you're the only authority that has the ability to accept gifts. But you've delegated the manager to accept up to $100. So I must sign 3 or 4 of these a week. Do you want to increase the limit so that there aren't as many appearing on your agenda, or is this something you enjoy doing? I'm just trying to get work off, but on the other hand, if there's something you like doing, hey, great. It ain't broke, we don't need to fix it necessarily, but your call.
I think it's nice to publicly recognize people that do make that, step up to a charitable contribution.
Yep.
And it's a short thing in the action, so I still like to see make it publicly known myself.
It's an awareness, and I think it's important that we continue.
The thing we have to make sure we, I know it's been brought up by, I forget which member, is repeated gift funds where.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that, it's not that we're accepting this gift in kind for something to come in front of us later on down the line.
And the other one was that certain gifts we could use to fund a certain project, but if it's not a repetitive gift, then it goes into taxation. We wanted to be
Right,
careful
that's
with
what Jim
something
was
like
just,
that.
yeah.
And it was Jimmy's.
That's why I think it's good that it comes in front of us.
Yeah.
Boy,
Okay.
we're back on schedule.
Yep.
Look at that, huh? The last item, before we go into the action items, is a discussion on the appointment of the craft organization / business opportunities discussion group. And with that, we're going to invite Dick Gellerman. I think this is the first time that you've been at the table formally. So this
In a
is
while.
in a while.
Not the first time.
I thought I wanted to ask you to go first into executive session.
Haha. For the record, I missed that meeting, so.
Checks.
So Dick is our town council, new back to Foxborough, and asked Dick to come to the table on this topic. There's a couple things. If you remember a couple meetings ago, we had the Water and Sewer and Planning Board and decided that it would be a good thing to put a committee together to work with the craft organization on some of the merits of what they want to do and how it works with what Foxborough wants to do. So I reached out to the chairman of the Water and Sewer and the Planning Board. They had independent meetings. They recommended Kevin Weinfeld, Bill Early, Kevin from Planning, Bill Early from Water and Sewer. We recommended Linda. And then we have Dave Brown, who's an at-large member representing the citizens, not an elected official, to work on a committee. They've had several meetings, but at this meeting we have to actually formally appoint them. So there's a motion that we put together for that. But before we do that, I thought Dick had gone to the last meeting, and maybe you can summarize what you think the committee's goals and objectives are from what you're hearing, and we can kind of have that discussion.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the objectives of the committee are to learn from the craft organization what it is they are asking of the town, and to try to get some specifics with regard to that, timelines with regard to that, and to learn from them what it is they're willing to propose to the town for us to accept what they're asking for. I don't think the committee ought to be a negotiating committee. It's a committee that should learn from the Patriots. It should be a public body and all that that entails, which means the public can attend its meetings, and the committee can learn from the public what's on their mind and get some recommendations that way. The committee should then report back to this board, to the Water and Sewer Commissioners, when and if there's something before the Planning Board. At that time, it should report to the Planning Board. Planning Board doesn't hold general sessions. They're always acting with regard to a particular application, and it's, as Kevin said Friday night, it's inappropriate for them to take information outside of an application hearing process. I don't think it's necessary to have counsel at these sessions because they're not going to be negotiating sessions. I don't know what we would add. I mean, I think we'd add something, but I don't really think it's necessary. I tried to, last couple of days, Jim Cobry's been on vacation. He has called me, but we've just missed one another. I don't think that they'll have a problem agreeing to not having counsel present. If something comes up unforeseen and you need counsel, we can do that. I think, Linda, that the executive session that we did have, I think it's appropriate at your next meeting Friday night to release those minutes. What we did at that meeting was very simple. I did not know that executive session was radioactive. I've since learned that. All I need, it was a very simple question. I just needed to know whether your board had taken a position on the issue of pricing for tickets under the lease agreement, which leads me to want to talk just a little bit about executive session. So that's a question that related to a lease negotiation, entirely appropriate for executive session. The reason that I can't ask, I didn't know the answer, the reason you can't ask that information is because if you had taken a position, there's no way to disclose that publicly without telling the craft organization, and there goes your bargaining ability. And that's the problem. And the public should understand that there's a lot of times that we'd like to be able to disclose everything, but if someone could find a way to exclude certain parts of the public, that is, the organization with whom you're negotiating, that'd be great, but you can't do that. The other issue on the open meeting law, and just so you know, it's not anything that you need to decide tonight, but the open meeting law allows certain exemptions: collective bargaining, lease negotiations, real estate negotiations. It does not cover all negotiations that you would normally expect to be able to conduct in private. It doesn't on its face. Many of us in the municipal law field see that as a defect. In 2007, the Supreme Judicial Court in Massachusetts, on a public documents case, not a open meeting case, looked at the issue as to whether or not the attorney-client privilege applies in the public documents situation. That is, a communication from a lawyer to a client is privileged. That means that it's private and the lawyer cannot disclose it absent the client's assent. And in that case, the Supreme Court, I thought, was very clear, saying that it's an ancient privilege, and if anybody's going to rescind it, they need to do so explicitly, clearly. And that did not happen in the public records law. And so
Wait a minute, Dick.
Time out.
Doesn't it
You're going to
slide?
have to touch it.
I think it
'cause I can't,
slides.
like, we need
Are you
something
saying, Kevin?
mechanical to do this, or we'll be here all night. There you go.
I'm
Thank
not
you.
supposed to touch it. It could be tampering.
But the language from the Supreme Judicial Court in that case, to me, seemed fairly clear that if they're presented with the question as to whether or not the open meeting law applies or whether it trumps the attorney-client privilege case law, my own thinking is that it won't, and that is given two very important privileges in our law. I think that the court would say that the attorney-client privilege is alive and well, but it hasn't said, and it hasn't been asked. The Attorney General's office is split on the issue. Just something to ponder. We're not there yet. We may or may not get there, but it is an issue before us. So, to summarize, I don't think you need to be lawyers. I think that the committee should be is a public body. I think it is, whether you say it is or not. Therefore, all of your meetings should be open. It's okay to release the minutes from what we talked about Friday night. And when you have all your information, report back, or you can do it periodically to this board. I'm always available to answer any questions as you go along. And so with that, I worked with the chairman today to draft a motion to cover most of these issues.
Okay, great, thank you. And just 2 seconds. One of Dick's first actions publicly was to go to this meeting, and I apologize because I didn't prep him probably like I should have of what the committee was and the focus on openness. and it was all about openness. And when he went into executive session, I don't think he was ready for what hit him. And I think it was all good intentions. But, Foxborough, between the school committee dealing with it a couple of years ago and the casino and on all this stuff, I think people are very sensitive. So when we started this committee, we said the only way we want to do it is if it's 100% open, even if we didn't have to. We were going to do it. There's a secretary, there's meeting minutes, and everybody's invited. So when you walked into that, would have been nice to have that background, but it's after the fact now. So we did prepare that, and I had given it to either Lorraine or Mark to read, because I don't think you can read a motion to appoint yourself. And as chairman, I can't, so.
Okay.
You can't read? Or read it?
Should I make the motion? Sure. I make a motion to appoint Kevin Weinfeld of the Planning Board, William Early of the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners.
Which, by the way, is misspelled, but
Yeah.
I absolutely refuse to learn how to spell his name. I've tried 4 times.
That was me, too.
Well, while we're at it, Linda's name is also
And
misspelled.
that's right, while we're at it. It's L-Y-N-D-A.
Linda Walsh of the Board of Selectmen and resident Dave Brown to serve on a public advisory committee to meet with representatives of the craft organization to discuss potential opportunities that may serve the town of Foxborough as well as assist their development needs. Mr. Weinfeld, Mr. Early, and Ms. Walsh are to serve in their respective capacities as members of the boards they represent. The committee shall be a public body, and their meetings shall be open to the public. The committee shall report back to the Board of Selectmen and to the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners its findings and recommendations. When and if there is a matter before the Planning Board relating to these recommendations, the committee shall at that time report to the Planning Board. Can I get a second?
Okay, motion made, seconded.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All those opposed? And all those abstaining? So
Linda abstained.
Okay. Thank you.
While we're on this subject, I'd just like to make a statement, if I could. I make this statement in regards to disclosing an appearance of conflict of interest as required by GLC 268A 23B3. I do this to dispel the appearance of a conflict of interest. I am currently a selectman here in town and most recently have been asked to sit on an ad hoc committee to begin discussions with the craft group about their request for additional liquor licenses and the town's need to join the regionalization of water and waste with Mansfield and Norton. Previously, I have been a trustee for the Doolittle Home. I was on the Founders Day for a couple of years, and I am currently a member of the Foxboro JCs. I am proud of being involved with many organizations in town and have never let my membership cloud a judgment of any individual or organization who has come before this Board of Selectmen. There have been many times that the craft organization, as well as many other commercial entities, have supported each of these groups, whether in a donation of a gift to be auctioned off at the Doolittle auction or a football to be raffled off during Founders Day. I'd like to ensure the town that any vote that I have taken while at my seat at the Board of Selectmen has been made after I completed my research based purely on facts and what will be best for the town. Taking into account these facts, I feel that I can perform my official duties objectively and fairly.
Thank you for that disclosure.
And there's a form in the... Sure. There's a form filed with the town clerk, and I may suggest to any board members out there that you really got to dig deep and think of what possibly you could be under the microscope for, because you might be doing a great thing for an organization, but you could be subjecting yourself to a conflict of interest. And, it's very unfortunate that most of our boards are made up of people who are soccer coaches, baseball coaches, do a lot for the town, and I don't think there's anybody in town that hasn't been privied by many of the organizations, as well as are establishments in town that donate things. So, just, you really got to dig deep and look for it. You know, I've been accused of not being truthful or not coming out with some of these things that I've been involved with. But I can't list them all of the things that I've done for this town, but I just want everybody to understand that I do, all the things and actions that I do are only for the best of my town.
Well said.
So I encourage others to do the same for their boards.
Kevin?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, appreciate something flying around there. Appreciate what Dick has written here to assist the board in establishing the committee. This is a great job in giving some clarity to exactly what this committee is and what its charge is, and I think Linda will attest that this will be helpful as you go forward, because there's been some concerns. I did want to mention to the board, we've had an offer from the Kraft organization to reimburse the town up to $10,000 for legal and/or clerical expenses involved with assistance that we may need as we continue to hold these discussions. Unless otherwise directed by the board, my intention would be to accept that money, whether they want to make it a lump sum, they want to make it a reimbursement. I want it to be clear also that my intention would be that it's a reimbursement to the town. Our employment of town council is in no way prejudiced or perjured in any way, any more than tonight we had a liquor license applicant agree for the board's condition to pay the costs of our council to go through those proceedings, because it was unusual, and the taxpayer shouldn't always have to bear the burden of unusual expense. So I wanted that to be, I know there's been some discussion about it, there's been some concern in the community, and I think anytime that's out there, get right out here publicly, get it right on the table. If there's a problem, let me know, because I think Linda needs some guidance. She's asked me, should we accept it? My answer is yes, but if you say no, then it's no. But my intent would be to accept it. Second thing I wanted clear is that Dick's involvement, to the extent it generates billable hours, is something that occurs pursuant to your policy if the manager authorizes it or the board votes it. And so I want it to be, so Dick doesn't get blindsided, that that's the way the policy is structured, that's the way it has to be, so that people understand that there is not an independent outside tasking of town council's time just because we're getting reimbursed. That is still being controlled by the town. And there's been some questions I've fielded in the last couple days about that, which is, who's directing town council's time? It is the town of Foxborough that's directing that time. And I want that to be absolutely clear to the public that that's the way that is. And so that would include, whether Dick attends those meetings or not. That's something that, in this latest case, Dick, last Friday night, I had some concerns, expressed them with the chairman. We worked those concerns out. Dick attended the meeting. All was great. And I think as we go forward, that's the model we'll continue to use. I wanted to get that out so the public hears that, because there was quite a bit of discussion about it, both Friday night and in the days yesterday.
Thank you.
So, question? The $10,000 figure, is that what the Kraft organization has offered to the town?
Linda received the offer. I didn't.
I believe it was up to $10,000. We tried to kind of figure out about how many meetings it would take, and how much time Dick would be there, and as well tried to incorporate the secretary's fee with it. So, if I don't think that they're going to say, here's $10,000, do what you want with it. Dick's not going to be there, and Dick will. If I call you, obviously. Well, I guess I have to call Kevin first to ask if I can speak to you.
Not for quick things, but I mean, if it's going to task a substantial amount of time.
Right, and I believe that's what I did, though, Kevin. I did reach out to you.
Yeah, you did.
I specifically
asked,
and that's when
Jim and
I
I
do that?
got into a dialogue. And the concern at that point was more than the hour of Dick's time. The concern really was, what is the role of council in these negotiations? And I think we've got a little clearer understanding now.
That's all that was.
First of all, the offer to reimburse the cost of the town for my time didn't come to or through me, so that's clear.
No.
I learned about it through you folks. My intent is to build a town. For the time I spend on it, I will identify it as being related to these issues so that you can choose to seek reimbursement or not. Up to you. So it's relatively simple. I think, Kevin, we're clear that the use of my time on this matter has been authorized.
Yeah.
The only other thing, here's my question. If the amount that is invoiced for Dick doesn't come up to that $10,000, I know we have significant other legal bills related to the same topic from prior town council. Shouldn't we be submitting invoices for, once this comes to a point where Dick's work is potentially done related to this group, shouldn't we be submitting for that? Because it's the same topic.
The short answer is no, and the reason is this. I think the hope is we've gone through a difficult period of time in our relationship with the craft organization. Everyone knows that. And I think the hope is that we've got an opportunity to try to restructure, regroup, make the relationship, improve it, learn from the past, strengthen it moving forward. And there's a real hope that there's some mutually beneficial business opportunities here that we can go forward on, that don't include casinos, but do include a lot of other good things, potentially. And as the committee tries to discern what those opportunities are that work for the town and communicate that to the craft organization and let them discern, is it enough to do some things they'd like to do, there's going to be a need for legal counsel to try to enter into some and answer some questions. And certainly, when Linda reports back to this board, Kevin reports back to the planning board, Bill reports back to Water Sewer Commission, there's going to be some additional questions that are going to arise. They're going to require legal counsel. And I think what they're saying to us is, look, we're making you this offer, and it's a generous one, so that to the extent we can assist the town with this gift and make there's a chance these negotiations may not produce a result. Mm-hmm. And so what they're saying to us is the taxpayers ought not to bear the burden of that. This is mutually beneficial, and here's a sign of good faith that we really want this to work. We really want something to happen. And so I would encourage the board, and I think Jim Cobrey said it best Friday night, we could spend a lot of time on the past, and that's not going to help us. We need to look forward, and this is a way to look forward. And so I would encourage the board to accept the gift, and I would also say that I think it is generous, and I'm very, very hopeful that this round of discussions is going to produce some real value for both parties. At the end of the day, the town ain't going anywhere, and they're not going anywhere, and they are our biggest business partner, and that's the reality, and we're going to have to make this work.
Okay. Other than, I would hesitate to term it as a gift. It's a reimbursement for our expenses.
It's a reimbursement, up to,
so,
yeah.
Well said. And I don't want to belabor what you brought up, Linda, but I'm kind of in the same category of people questioning conflict of interest, and I've got to make that same disclosure. I went to Bob Cutler, and he was out today, but I will be filing a form. And I actually did go back to the tapes, and I've spent extensive time at one of the meetings disclosing the fact that I do work for a charity organization.
And I say it every time something comes up for the JCs. I
either
say it
fell
every
on
time, but
deaf ears
it doesn't
or,
matter. And
so-
they can even say like mine was that I as far as the craft organization, that I actually supported a casino. Funny, I don't remember that, ever saying that, or I don't know where these people get these things, but at any rate, we're all targets for somebody's misinterpretation of weather, so
We
careful
targets
what you
already.
give to and every time, so, yeah, just make that statement at some point, so
I'll do
you're
that at the
safe.
next meeting. Action items.
Thank you.
All right,
Good night.
thank you, Dick,
Thanks,
appreciate
Good
it.
night.
We have an application for a Class 2 auto license at 3 Phelps Drive.
I was kind of confused about this a little bit. It's a license for a residential,
It seems like it's a license to purchase vehicles, but not for resale for their own use, and then not going to keeping them on their premise.
it's a license
But
to
they-
go to auction.
Auctions
Yeah.
for their own use.
So if they have the license, they can go to auction, but they're not going to sell them on site.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah,
I believe
this is pretty common, and the reason is because you need the Class 2 in order to get the dealer plates. You can't legally get one without the other, and they can't transport the cars without the dealer plates. So this is very commonly done, and I would encourage the board in your motion of approval, if you intend to do that, to include the words "not for display." That way you make it clear that there isn't going to be a used car lot suddenly popping up somewhere. This is strictly for transport.
And if we make that motion, that would not show up on the license grant Class 2 that we're signing? It would be in the meeting minutes only?
I'm sorry?
If we make a motion for not for display, it's not a markup that we put on this license that's in front of us to sign.
Yeah,
It's just
it actually
only-
goes on the face of the license.
So we would handwrite it on what we're going to sign?
You can do that, yep. And the reason it's important is I'm pretty sure if I check, 3 Phelps Drive is not zoned for business. And so, you can't grant a license which is contrary to the town zoning.
Right.
And so these folks understand they're not going to be storing cars there. That's going to be done at a different
Bill
location.
Casbera signed off on it.
Yep.
So
Right.
I'm comfortable with that, so.
And I think right on the application, it says no, 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 when they
Right.
talk about signing, so. All right, is there a motion
That
for the,
we approve the application for Class 2 auto license at 3 Phelps Drive to be displayed and sold off of the premises.
okay, motion made, seconded?
Second?
Second by Lorraine. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The record show 4-0. 4-0. Second action item, request to hold the Muscular Dystrophy Association Boot Drive on Saturday, September 15th of this year from 9 to 1, and that's by Keith Hodson of the Foxborough Fire Local 2252.
I move that we approve the boot drive for MDA for Saturday, September 15th, from 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock on the Foxborough Common.
Second?
Motion made by Linda, seconded by Lorraine. Any more discussion?
Just that, this is one of the groups that I grandfathered in to be able to do that.
And they've done this every year that I
Yes.
can remember. Okay, motion made and seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. 4-0 for the record. Action item number 3, request to block off Connie Drive where it meets Carmine Ave and Linda Street to hold a neighborhood block party Saturday, August 11th, which is this Saturday, from 1 to 9.
I spoke to Chief O'Leary about this. He didn't have any problem with it. He just wanted the message that there would be no drinking on the public way. So I called the individual and suggested they call the chief directly to hear that from him. But he didn't have any issue with it. So.
And that's just a vote, there's nothing here to sign.
Right.
Okay.
Motion made.
Second.
Actually, did you make a motion?
No.
Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve the request to block off Connie Drive at Carmen Ave and Linda Street for a neighborhood block party on Saturday, August 11th from 1 to 9 p.m.
Okay, motion made by
Second.
Lorraine, seconded by Mark. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
Sharon?
4-0.
You
Oh.
can-
I didn't realize you were here. We would have brought you up earlier. Last but not least, on the fourth agenda item, Sharon Wasson,
Thank you.
Town Planner.
Thank you. I appeared before you 2 weeks ago with my chairman and a member of my board to discuss a number of issues, one of which was adoption of the housing production plan. You you instructed us to have the planning board review it and consider its adoption and to let you know what had happened with that regard. So they reviewed the plan. They made sure that all the comments at the joint board meeting of June the 28th were reflected in what was entitled the final plan, and adopted it unanimously at their last meeting of July the 26th.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, no, you can say any, just, I'm saying thank you for the vote. Any questions with Sharon while she's here?
We do a motion.
I think we'd
then?
do a motion to, I'll entertain a motion to accept the adoption of to adopt the housing production plan.
So moved.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Good job.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you,
We
Sharon.
appreciate it.
Thank you for sticking around.
We have nothing to sign for that either.
Correct.
Okay.
No.
Nothing here to sign.
Sharon,
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 did you bring
before you
something to
leave,
sign?
Aren't we
last
supposed
week
to
I
sign?
signed for
Oh,
the
the
transit.
committee.
There's nothing to sign on this with the state?
No, I'll have Sandra generate a certificate of some sort. It then goes with a certificate of planning board action and Board of Selectmen adoption to the state for its approval.
Okay.
And did we want that committee?
For the
committee.
The trust.
Trust?
Yeah.
Well, we need to go to town meeting to set up the affordable housing.
Okay.
Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. And then Jim gets to name
Gets to
the,
be, yeah.
name the committee members.
not
So
gonna
that's
mean- yeah,
clearly
no.
something that'll be discussed
After
while the
we-
town meeting article's being contemplated.
Okay.
So we'll work closely with Jim to think about whether it's ex officios or citizens or a combination, and, who's going to be a good housing trust committee.
Yeah, I just didn't want that part to fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
No, we're working on it, Linda.
Super.
Thank you.
Sure
Thanks.
you are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Sharon.
much. I appreciate it.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank, back there.